Ravi Shankar sir, are you there?
Please start the meeting as recording has already started.
All right. Namaste, good afternoon, good morning, and good evening to everyone. This is Gaurav Sharma. I'm your host, along with my co-host, Ravinder Kaur ma'am. Ravi Shankar sir, we need to start the session with the video. Can we have the video first?
Yeah, please let them have. Everyone should on the video. That is what I'm telling.
Yep.
Participants should on the video. That is my message.
Please, participants, I request you all, please switch on your video so that we can have a very good session today.
Good view will come, no?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, Gauravji, please proceed. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. So, Ravi Shankar sir, can we have today's video of Seat Talk 2? आज का वीडियो जो हमने बनाया होगा वो होगा पहले हम प्ले कर सकते हैं उसको.
I think 1 second. It is not uploaded in YouTube, so it will be difficult to play. I will play in the last, no problem.
All right, not a problem. So now I'm going to start. All right. Namaste, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all the eminent personalities, panelists from different parts of the globe. To Mr. Ravi Shankar sir, the founder of IDYM Foundation, and to all the esteemed guests. आप सबको मेरा हाथ जोड़ के नमस्कार. I'm Gaurav Sharma, your host, along with my co-host, Ravinder Kaur ma'am, brings you a brand new episode of one of its own kind, Seat Talks. This initiative of conducting Seat Talks, first of its kind, has been taken up by IDYM Foundation. Now, I would like to tell something a bit description about this IDYM Foundation, what we do, and what are our future plannings. IDYM Foundation performs workshops on satellites, lectures on space functions, and is a hub of professionals, IITians, and educators. The goal of this foundation is to serve the country to achieving the goal of self-reliant India. The mission is to ignite dreams of young minds and to promote space and satellite education for every young individual so that the entire student community can benefit and have dreams and goals and meet their aspiration accordingly. IDYM is currently connecting all such space experts with every young mind and is on track to cover all the states, entire states across the country and globally as well. Kudos to the team and to Mr. Ravi Shankar sir, who is the founder of this foundation. The Seat Talk is also the figment of his imagination and realization of his dream. To have talks on skill enhancement and to create milestones for education development. These are talks which will focus on various aspects of skill development, various aspects of educational initiatives on how education needs to be penned out. And what are the young children are expecting from us? As a country, what are we offering to our young minds? Once again, a very warm welcome to all the panelists. I welcome you all to the second episode of Seat Talks. And today we have a very crucial and important topic to discuss. Strategies of reopening of schools after COVID-19. The need of the hour, the need of the time. Regardless of country's capacity to provide appropriate, continued access to learning during crisis and school closure, all education systems should prepare for schools to reopen when the time comes. This process poses many challenges for education authorities and careful planning is essential. By saying this, now I will ask my co-host, Ravinder Kaur ma'am, to welcome and introduce all the guest panelists for today's Seat Talk. Thank you. Ravinder ma'am, please take over.
Thank you so much, Gauravji. So good evening to all the dignitaries and delegates. Great joy and immense exultation. I, Ravinder Kaur, feel privileged to extend my warm welcome to all presented here for the Seat Talk episode 2. Strategies of reopening schools after COVID-19. As we all know, the manner in which schools are reopened will lay the foundation for classroom learning in a post-COVID era. Important lessons from around the world can help governments address the unprecedented impacts around the world have closed the schools in attempt to contain the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic. Many have launched distance learning programs and beginning to plan for recovery, a phase that involves much more than reopening the gates and readmitting the students. During the response, there may be opportunities for governments to improve practices and build back better. But decisions are being made under extreme uncertainty. In this context, education policy making is particularly difficult, but will be strongest when it is informed by existing rigorous evidence, approached with a long-term perspective that prioritizes flexibility, communication, trust, and able to be adopted based on new data and information gained from community engagement and monitoring. So today, in this special episode of Seek Talk, we are going to discuss on a various aspects like when and how the schools be reopened. Is it safe for children to come back to school? What are the risks if children continue to distance learning? Why it is important for students to return to classroom learning? How to engage communities in reopening plans? Targeting resources to where they are most needed. How to get children back to school. How to make school environment safe. And how to recover the learning loss and build back better. So, as we all know, that returning to school is vital for children, education, and for their well-being. Time out of school is detrimental for children's cognitive and academic development. Lower academic achievements also translate into long-term economic cost due to having a less well-qualified workforce. This affects the standards of living that today people will have over the course of their entire life. So keeping all these challenges in mind, we are here to discuss the strategies of school reopenings post-COVID with the most eminent educationists across the world. My warm welcome to the all panelists for Seek Talk episode 2, Strategies of Reopening Schools Post-COVID. I welcome Mr. Luis Miguel, all the way from Portugal. Hola, boa tarde, sir.
What's up?
Mr.
Good afternoon.
Yes,
Good afternoon.
Hola, yeah. Good afternoon. It's the afternoon. Here it's evening, sir. So I wish you evening. Hola, boa tarde. I guess it's evening, yeah?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Muntar Muhammad from Palestine. Marhaba, dear sir.
Thank you.
Dr. Krishna, yeah.
Shukriya.
Welcome, sir. Dr. Krishna Kathuria from Maharashtra. Namaskar, ma'am.
Namaste. Namaste to each and everyone present.
Namaste. Namaste, ma'am. Miss Paulina from Poland.
Good afternoon
Paulina,
from
ma'am?
Poland. Yes.
Poland.
Good afternoon from Poland. Namaste.
Yeah,
It's a pleasure to be
ma'am.
here.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much. And Dr. L. Balachandra from Tamil Nadu. Vanakkam, sir.
Yeah, vanakkam. Good evening. Yeah, good evening.
Very good evening, sir. Very good evening. And next, the most important person who is the soul of our IDIM Foundation, Engineer Ravi Shankar. You're always backswing. And last but not
After all this worldwide problem that we are having and that we are dealing with, that is the COVID-19 pandemics. So this is an effort that, of course, it's a global effort, but we cannot forget that each country has its own characteristics. Each region has its own characteristics. So we must work in all these three levels: an international level, a global level, a national level, and a regional, a local level. This is most important so that an organized thought and a global framework can be adapted, it can be flexible to all countries, to all regions, and of course, respecting the culture and education system of the country. I would like to share with you, my dear colleagues and friends, a very small presentation about key ideas that I will share with you. So, my friends, strategies of reopening of schools post-COVID-19 is, of course, one of the most important topics that we are dealing with in education, not only in Europe, but all over the world. So this forum, this panel is absolutely vital in order to share experiences and to share points of view from different countries so that we can come together and organize our thoughts, our minds, and our hearts so that our students can go back to schools and start having face-to-face lessons. So we must restore normality in our educational system. But of course, this will also need adaptation from governments, from political responsibles, and of course, from teachers and from students. So this is a huge effort that connects us all. I would like to share two documents that I will present in a few minutes. And the first document is Framework for Reopening Schools by UNESCO. And this framework is, I think, absolutely vital for all countries because it has a framework that is very flexible and it has guidelines that approach the different problems and the different key issues that we are dealing with. So, first of all, the need that we have is that we are the prior to reopening, the part of reopening process, and with schools. We have three levels of approaching this issue. First of all, we must prepare with critical policies, procedures, and financial plans needed to improve schooling with a focus on safe operations, including strengthening remote learning practices. So this is the first level. Then we have the second level, part of reopening process. We must adopt proactive approaches to reintegrate marginalized and out-of-school children, and that is very important. We must invest in water, sanitation, and hygiene to mitigate and focus on remedial education to compensate for lost institutional time. Third, reopen. Actively monitor health indicators, expanding focus on well-being and protection, strengthen pedagogy, adapt remote education for blended teaching and learning, including knowledge on infection transmission and prevention. Of course, I won't be explaining all this, but I honestly think that this framework is vital for our basic dilemmas that we are facing today. So this framework also established some priorities that I would like to highlight. And the first priority is, of course, to equip teachers to deal with both learning recovery needs. So this means that school, of course, needs a global approach from the governments, from the national authorities, from the regional authorities. But one of the most important things that we never can forget is that teachers are key agents in all of this return and this reopening of schools. And that is truly highlighted by this framework for reopening schools by UNESCO. And I would also like to share a second document also by UNESCO, that is the reopening schools, how to get education back on track after COVID-19. So these key ideas are based on Susan Grant-Lewis, she was a keynote speaker at UNESCO's recent webinar on preparing for and managing the reopening of schools. And this is a major opportunity to think about what are our three urgent questions. First of all, timing. When can schools reopen? So the absolute priority is to safeguard people's lives and well-being, and these words belong to Suzanne Grant Lewis. Second, parents, teachers, and school communities need to have confidence that the school system can protect the physical and mental health of students, teachers, and other educational personnel. This means asking, for example, whether reopening schools risks spreading the virus, whether schools have the necessary hygiene facilities, how to reduce class sizes, to take into account physical distancing measures, and what psychological support the school community needs. The situation is different in and even within each country, and measures for reopening will need to be context specific, and this is most important, of course. Second, conditions. What preconditions must be met before school reopen? So the primary criteria for reopening will relate to physical protection against the coronavirus. Authorities might start by reopening schools that are in areas least affected by the outbreak or that have the most appropriate hygiene facilities. A second practical consideration is the availability of school personnel, especially teachers. Teacher and student numbers in classrooms will likely have to change, and it may be necessary to reorganize the school day. So school mapping techniques to explore, for example, double shift schooling are recommended. The third condition is the capacity of local administrations and institutions to make the required changes. So can subnational education actors, including school principals, implement double shift schooling, for instance? Or can they continue distance learning practices for some students while welcoming others back to the classroom? So, of course, this all depends on different countries, different regions, different approaches. But first of all, we need to focus on the number of teachers willing to return to work and on the number of students at risk of dropping out of education. And this we must truly avoid. And third, the processes. How can states organize the reopening of schools at a practical level? So the challenge for states is to determine which strategies and actions to take at the national and school levels. One question to start is, who goes back to school first? Some countries might decide on a geographic approach, considering access to decent education as a key factor, with schools in areas with higher poverty levels being the first to reopen. This can be a criterion. Other strategies also exist, of course. In China, school reopenings began with those in less populous areas and prioritizing high school students in their final years of education. Elsewhere, in Denmark and Norway, the youngest pupils have gone back first because they are less able than older students to learn at a distance. So when it comes to reopening schools, the consult, coordinate, and communicate approach is key, is absolutely vital, my friends. It is critical to build trust among the stakeholders, all the stakeholders. So this can be achieved through communication with the school community and back to school campaigns targeting those children most at risk of dropping out of education permanently, and that must be avoided. I will bring now some ideas that are very important in order to create a simple framework of thoughts, facts, and actions. So, for instance, we have the question of accommodating all students. We have the question of teacher numbers. We have the question of content. We have the question of physical activity. We have the question of space for staff. So this means that we must reorganize schools. And these are a few examples of how this reorganization can be made. For instance, school teacher numbers. Of course, should school day be staggered, extra teaching capacity will be needed. But of course, this implies that extend teaching hours and or hiring more teachers. And this implies significant cost expected and risk of teaching imbalance and standards. So what we need to do is to realize that these strategies are global, as I said before, but each country must understand the characteristics of each region, the characteristics of each city, each village, each school, and establish a compromise between these guidelines that are global and the needs and the true characteristics and aspects of each community, because schools are not isolated. Schools are always connected with the community. So this is a community-based answer that we are talking about. And of course, this would also require a deeper approach about all these questions. But I would like to end this presentation with a thought that I consider to be most important. First of all, COVID can't stop our education, can't stop our educational systems, and education cannot stop. Those are the words by Unesco. And of course, if we are truly committed, we will overcome all this. And I truly enjoy this, this idea, this proverb, and I will end my presentation with this proverb. So if your plan is for 1 year, plant rice. If your plan is for 10 years, plant trees. If your plan is for 100 years, educate children. So this is the most important thing to do, my dear colleagues and my dear friends. So education is our future. Education is our common future. So this is why this panel is so important. This is why education is so important. This is why inspiring young students is so important. So I truly have to say that it was a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be with IDEAM Foundation. It's a pleasure to share this dream about education and our common future. And of course, I truly wish that together, and I truly believe that together we will overcome all this, and we will win this battle against COVID-19, and we will build a better future for our students. So thanks again to our founder. Thanks again to the IDEAM Foundation. It was a huge honor and pleasure to be here. And of course, I look forward to collaborate again. And please feel free to contact me for further information or to discuss these ideas. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable thoughts. And it is, you said very rightly that 3 points are very major: timing, yes, confidence between the parents, school authorities, children, and teachers. Because students all across the globe are the future of this community, entire world community, and they need to be inside school for in-school learning as soon as possible. And you, me, and we all the educators from across the globe, we know the importance of education, and we will make this possible as soon as possible by this trust only. Because this trust is the thing we have to build inside parents, teachers, and students. Thank you so much for your valuable words. And now I will ask my co-host Samindra ma'am to call upon our second eminent panelist for.
Thank you, Gaurav sir. Thank you, Liz sir. So our next speaker for this evening is Mr. Dr. Muntar Muhammad Sir, all the way from Palestine. Very warm welcome, sir. So Dr. Muntar Sir is currently working as an assistant professor of English language, teaching at Al-Qaddas Open University in Palestine. Based in the Faculty of Educational Sciences, he has held many roles in the university as an administrative assistant to the director of Jenny branch and as a faculty member. His publications, including using drama in teaching English and the development of speaking skills. Ziad participated in many international projects led by outside partners and the sponsors, including the World Banks and Erasmus. Zad is a coordinator of Erasmus K10's 107 mobility with Malga University, Spain. Sir was a member of the organization and scientific committee of several conferences held in Palestine. He also participated in many training programs and workshops held in Palestine, United Kingdom, Germany, and Turkey within a project funded by the Erasmus in 2020. Sir is also a member of many local and international. Welcome to you, sir. Please, over to you.
Very much. Thank you for this introduction. First of all, I would like to extend my warm thanks to the founder of IDM and to the IDYM Foundation, to the speakers who are joining us today, to the moderators who are excellent in their work. Thank you very much for all. And I would like also to thank my colleagues who are present here at this meeting. As you heard the speaker saying that I'm from Palestine, and as you know, all Palestine is a small country with almost 4 million inside Palestine and 9 million outside Palestine. They are living in diaspora in the neighboring countries like Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, and other countries. So when the pandemic started in all over the world, it was suddenly started, not planned, and we are taken by surprise also here in Palestine. So our school were closed since 5th March 2020. I have to share something with you now, if you allow me.
Sure, sir, go ahead.
Is it visible?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay. So in response to the current health crisis, the Palestinian government ordered an immediate nationwide closure of schools on March 15th, 2020, as an emergency measure to prevent the spread of COVID-19. The Ministry of Education estimated that more than 1,034,000 children of school age went secondary students as well as preschool children. To mitigate the effects of the national lockdown and the disruption of education, new online courses. So the total number of children affected is 1,043,000 children, 1,022,282 school children, and 148,000 KG children. 57% of children affected are in West Bank and 43% in Gaza Strip. About the total number of children affected, 51 are female students. So the Ministry of Education in Palestine developed a national response plan to mitigate the effects of COVID-19 on the students through distance learning to ensure the provision of education through TV broadcasts and the internet. The National Response Plan is currently being implemented with the support of the UNESCO office in Palestine, along with the key education partners, including UNRWA, Save the Children, and UNICEF. To ensure timely implementation of the distant learning components of the National Response Plan, UNESCO supports the development of the e-platform of the Ministry of Education in Palestine known as Ta'ammul. Meanwhile, upgrading of the Ministry of Education website in Palestine. The Ministry of Education establishes Ta'ammul as an interactive e-platform for children in April of 2020 to share information with them and to stimulate them intellectually, encourage them to reflect on several questions and form ideas and opinions for self-reflection. Preparing to get the state of Palestine 1.5 million children back into the school in the middle of the COVID-19 outbreak was not an easy task. Since mid-July, the number of Palestinians infected with the deadly coronavirus has increased rapidly. UNICEF support last summer for the establishment of protocols and training in steps to prevent the spread of the virus and manage outbreaks has been critical to opening Palestinian schools and keeping them open. The Palestinian Authority Education Ministry has promised a gradual return to school to ensure the students are safe. So far, only students from kindergarten through 4th grade are being allowed back, as well as 12th graders. 12th graders is the last year on school. So the ministry has said that those who have sitting for their last year in school, they should go to school and like take lectures face to face. If all goes well, the remaining students will return on September 20. According to the government's plan, students will be spaced out in class and compelled to come with masks, while a system of rotating groups of students in and out will prevent crowding. We have started schools with, as I said, with from 4 to 6 students, and there was a rotation also. Like if the class contains 40 students, some students will go, for instance, Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday. The other 20 will go Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, like this. So there was some rotation in the students going back to school. To ensure timely implementation of the distant learning components of the National Response Plan, UNESCO supports the development of the e-platform of the Ministry of Education in Palestine as Ta'amul. Meanwhile, upgrading, sorry, I am going back again to the. So now, what is the need for us to reopen or to go back to the schools? 1,043,000 children in West Bank and Gaza in need for continuation of distance learning, as their education has been disrupted due to education facilities closure. The Ministry of Education is in need to e-learning materials and platforms that can be used now during the school closures to ensure continuity of learning for children while at home. 3,622 children in need of home-based learning materials that should be distributed to families without internet connection in remote areas in the West Bank and Gaza. 1,043,000 children in need to receive continuous age-appropriate key awareness, raising messages to children and their families around COVID-19, hygiene-related preventive measures, and continuity of learning at home. 5,000 schools and kindergartens in need for cleaning and disinfecting